Thanks for joining us again. This segment we have with us Roxanne Rogers, president of Rogers Resource Group, an author on career planning, who is here to talk to us today about branding and personal branding. Welcome to IowaWorks.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Let's start by talking about what is a personal brand.
Well, it's the same thing as a product brand, basically, is that you want people to be able to identify you and what benefits you bring to their organization. So in your career development, what you want to do is to brand yourself so that you are known for this particular brand, identified with that, and people recognize that. And they'll pick you out of the crowd on your resume and various other things that you may be using to get yourself out there.
So it's kind of like what makes me special.
Exactly.
And how do you start to identify what that special thing is?
Well, you need to, first of all, really take a good look at yourself and your skills, your experiences, and more importantly, what it is you want to be doing in terms of your career. And then begin to say, what are the things that I bring to the table that are unique, that other people aren't going to be bringing to the table, who have basically the same skills, experiences, and background, education, those kinds of things, and be able to put that into a sentence that you could write on the back of your business card. That sums it all up in a nutshell and makes it easy for people to remember and to identify with you.
So I probably should ask you, what's your brand?
My brand is maximizing human capital and resolving workplace issues.
Wow, good.
Yes, that's really succinct.
Well, it is compared to especially the broad range of things that I do in my consulting work, and it has to be. And it's a little bit vague in some perspectives of that, but it encompasses all those things that I do.
So if you're a job seeker and you're preparing for an interview with an employer that you really want to work for, what are some of the ways that you would prepare to sell your brand, and how would you do that through the whole interview?
Well, the most important thing is that you have reached that point where you can succinctly say what you are, basically, and identifies with you. You should have used it in your cover letter before you applied for the position. I would also use it in your resume as you describe the things that you do, to utilize that phrase so it begins to pop out to people. They have already seen it before you get there. And then when you're in their interview and they say, tell me why I should hire you as opposed to someone else, and they almost invariably say that, you're able to present that front and center, utilize that, and then expand on it so that they really get a full picture of who you are and what you bring to the table.
So you need to kind of stick with a concrete message and just kind of repetitively use it throughout your whole job search.
Exactly, and that's what they do in marketing. If you look at the various brands that you see on television, you don't want to diffuse your brand by saying other things about yourself. You want to constantly come back to that tagline. You know, it's the taglines that sell products, and you're the product from that perspective. And so you want to stick with that, so you want to do a good job with it in the beginning. And when you meet people and they say, well, what do you do? Then you can repeat that tagline and say, I maximize human capital, I resolve workplace issues in a variety of ways. And then you can begin to expand on it. But they're going to remember that part first.
So it would seem that if I've lost a job or I'm looking for a job, that's really one of the first things I should sit down and write down to really think through, you know, what am I, and why would I be important to that employer, and what's my brand?
Exactly. And what happens a lot of time is we become so frightened because we need that job. We've got to have a way to make a living.
Paralyzed.
And all we want is a job, and we want it to happen fast because the job searching experience is so denigrating most of the time. And so as a result, you tend to diffuse your brand because you want to get the most possibilities that you can, and that won't work for you. What you need to do is say, who am I? What do I bring to the table? I need to sell that, as opposed to trying to be all things to all people in terms of the jobs I'm looking for.
So you shouldn't just walk in and say, what do you want my brand to be?
No, exactly. You've got to take control of that yourself. And if you don't, someone else will. Someone else will decide that's who you are and give you that label, and in their mind, that's what you will stay. And I think the more public that you are as a figure, the harder it is to be able to control that brand and make sure that that's what's happening, and you're constantly selling that message.
So that brand probably also plays into your job seeking and which jobs you go after. A lot of times we hear of job seekers who are, you know, just plastering their resume out there, and they're not. Maybe it's more important to pick on a very few jobs that are in your niche and really focus a lot of energy on those few jobs versus a mass.
I think it's very important to focus on the work you want to do, the work you're best qualified for doing that combination of things. But I also know from experience and doing outplacement for people over many, many years and watching what happens to my clients is that numbers do matter. And so it may be more a matter of researching the companies and the opportunities as opposed to focusing on the job openings and then expanding that aspect to it so that you're doing both, that you're staying true to your brand and you're also getting the numbers out there.
Are there some brands that you think are more common that you run into more frequently than others?
In terms of people and their careers? Well, certainly there are, but it depends on the occupations. The branding aspect of it is what you bring from your unique skill. And part of the way to look at that is who is my competition? And so as within this demographic of my competition, what do I do particularly well that I want to sell and make that the brand? And we all have that. We all have that one thing that we bring to that table. The other thing people will discover in this is whether or not they're in their right work. And if they're not, it probably isn't going to work for them long term. They need to get to their right work. And sometimes you need to make that your brand and really work effectively to get there.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time right now. This has really been a fascinating segment. I've learned a lot just from listening to you, Roxanne, and this whole concept of branding. If you have any additional questions about this topic, feel free to look at the website that's scrolling below on the screen. Thank you.